Hello, this is Benzyme here with another guide. This time I'm going to teach you how to maximize your DPS on the World of Warcraft. I hope you can sit through it as I go over the things that everyone should know if they want to achieve top DPS inside of their raid. The first thing you need to know is every second you fight, the parsing meter is ticking. It's timing the length of the fight, and while the fight is taking place, it's tracking the total damage done and dividing it by the time spent attacking the boss, the mobs, trash, whatever else is tracking at that time. Keeping your downtime, which is the time you spend not doing any damage at all, at a minimum, keeps that time denominator from cutting your number down any further than it needs to be. So keep in mind the time that you spend deciding what to do in the middle of a fight, running from one spot to another, misplacing yourself and causing you to be out of range of the boss or whatever else it may be. The time that you're spending not actually doing anything at all is lowering your DPS. Hotkeys are another important thing to make use of in raids. There are many clickers out there, and the debate is still on between players over which is faster, clicking or keybinding. My answer is both. Keybinds are definitely a lot faster and a lot better, but if you don't have enough room on your action bar, which is the case many times whether it's PvP or PvE, you can see in this clip that I have some of my most important spells next to my character, so I can easily keep track of them at all times and be able to click them a lot faster if they're not on my action bar. If you're not yet used to keybinding, you should spend your time in front of the training dummies in major cities like Orgrimmar, Thunder Bluff, or just queuing for dungeons to get yourself used to using them. The most important thing is not only to get used to using them, but to be comfortable with where they are. Be sure to set your keybinds at a comfortable place on your keyboard where they are at reach in all times and where they don't interfere or cause downtime in between queuing up your abilities. Every time you start casting a spell or using an ability, you must know which ability you're going to use next and be ready to queue it up. Don't wait until after a cast is done to begin pressing a button. There is latency in between the computer and the server, no matter how fast your computer is or how fast your internet is, or even if you're sitting right next to the server at Blizzard headquarters rating like that, there's still going to be latency in between the computer and the server. So always know which ability you're going to use next and go ahead and queue the ability up ahead of time before the cast or the ability is finished. My favorite thing to do is actually not just to queue an ability up, but just keep pressing the button of the next ability that you're going to use and just keep hitting it. The reason that I mentioned the word queue is because there is a default I don't know the word I'm looking for, but there is a default thing inside of the game that you can change in the interface options where it's set at 300 milliseconds before your cast is finished, or 300 milliseconds before your global cooldown comes off, 300 milliseconds before you can do your next ability. You can queue your next spell. You can actually play around with that option up in the interface options, but I leave mine at 300 milliseconds. I don't really need to play with it because I'm all the time queuing up my next ability, and I'm constantly hitting the button to minimize the amount of time in between casts. Another cool thing you can use is a Razer Naga mouse. A lot of people who play MMOs actually use a Naga mouse because it's made for MMOs. You don't have to use that, but if you've got a mouse that you can actually use for an MMO and keybind a lot of stuff to that, you can actually use that. You don't even have to have keybinds. Now, I've got one, but I still use keybinds because I'm still used to it, and I'm still having to use a keyboard anyway to use some of the directional keys. You can also bind an ability to your middle mouse button. I do that all the time. Any kind of mouse now has a middle mouse button that you can actually press to use for anything. And if you have an ability like Blizzard or Hurricane, something that you actually have to drag and drop, using your middle mouse button is actually the best bet because you don't actually have to click something and drag it and drop it. That's wasting too much time. If you want to bind it to Death Grip, I do that on Death Knights. Click the person or mob that you want to Death Grip and hit your middle mouse button. At no time at all, you've got it. I put Blink as my middle mouse button on my Shaman. I don't know what to put there. I usually put that ability that lets you walk while casting. Just anything that will minimize your time, you can bind it to your middle mouse button. Another thing you can do is keep track of your trinkets. There are add-ons out there that you could change the options to keep track of your trinkets for you, so you don't have to look at the upper right hand side of the screen. But you don't have to have that. But whatever it is that you could use to assist you in keeping track of it, it'll actually help you out a lot. Dots are a mechanic that's confusing to a lot of people. It doesn't really have to be. Blizzard has actually worked to simplify the mechanic of dots over time. With warlocks, I'm not like affliction warlocks. I'm not really sure how that ability pandemic works, because ever since they implemented it, I haven't raided with a warlock seriously. If I did raid with one, it was just LFR or something. And they have add-ons out there to help you keep track of it. But they actually made it to where you can refresh your dots before it ends. So like for instance, if I put living bomb on a target, used to you had to wait for the last tick to happen so it would explode, but you don't have to do that anymore. I can actually refresh it before it explodes. It's still going to explode, and it's going to queue up the next tick. But it won't work if you refresh it when it's still got 2 ticks left. It's still gonna keep the next tick that's gonna have, but it's not gonna keep the one after that. So you got to make sure you refresh it when it only has 1 tick remaining. And if you keep doing that, in the end you will do more DPS that way. And when in doubt, when you're looking at different guides and stuff on the internet, I've been to plenty of guides before that what they were saying was wrong, and what they were saying was just an opinion. And a lot of people in this game take opinions as facts. You should always try it out and test it out. Every single one of my tombs are parked in front of a training dummy, a raiding training dummy, and somewhere, whether it's Thunder Bluff or Orgrimmar. I prefer Thunder Bluff because it's got less lag there. And I spend most all of my time experimenting with different things and seeing for myself what kind of damage I can do. And you got to spend at least 6 or 7 minutes on it to get an accurate number, because sometimes people get lucky with their procs, and sometimes the RNG just is in their favor. So going for like 3 minutes is not going to give you an accurate depiction of what your DPS will be like. I always try different things out. I'll put different gems in. I'll reforge a different way. Even if it sounds ridiculous, like if it sounds like you're gemming and reforging for a stat that is supposed to be your worst stat, and you turn out to do more DPS with that one, we'll go with that one. And if you're still in doubt, actually go to a raid and try it out yourself. Go to an LFR, go to a flex raid, something like that. But I always test everything out, and I test stuff out all the time. With back in Dragon Soul, everybody was for fire mages, they were all going with critical strike, but I went with haste no matter what, and it had nothing to do with breakpoints. I just went with haste all the time, and I beat everybody, no matter how much more gear they had than me. And it was actually embarrassing to some people. I had one person tell me his friend was embarrassed because he was trying to tell me how to play a mage, and I actually was listening to him, but I didn't get to see what he actually did. I just saw his gear, and I kind of assumed that he was gonna have something to tell me. And so we went to an LFR, we went to all traction, and I kicked his butt so bad, like he was embarrassed and he didn't have anything to tell me. Because what actually triggered the conversation was the fact that I went with all haste on my mage, and he went with critical strike, and he was trying to tell me how critical strike was better. With haste always worked better for me anyway, so I went against the norm. I was one of the few who actually tried and put stuff to the test, and that actually put me out on top every single time, because I actually found what actually works best for me, as opposed to what a computer like Simcraft or something would say is best for you, or what somebody else says. And that's it for now. These were just the basics for maximizing your DPS. If you want any more guides in the future, just send me a message, and you send a request for what you would want to see. I'll try to see if I can put one together. I'm not going to put one together if I don't know what it is I'm talking about. So if you're looking for a guide for maximum Death Knight DPS or something like that, I've never played it, I've never raided with a Death Knight before. I mean, as a Death Knight, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how to do the most DPS as a Death Knight. So, but if I could, then I'll put up a guide for you. Just let me know, and thank you again for watching.
Use annotation support.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh no.
God, that works so much better fucking two healing